Okay, this is just a rather quick video on the issue of LGBT rights in Africa. I saw a BBC broadcast whereby Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has declared a war on the global LGBT movement. This is clearly something that African leaders take strong views on in terms of legislation. And a lot of Africans, certainly from what I've seen on BBC threads and Al Jazeera threads and so on, also take strong views, very conservative views. Several African countries carry the death penalty on the issue of being homosexual. There's been a lot of focus on Russia, and that's understandable, but there's maybe nowhere in the world that is as bad for gay rights as some African states. It must be terrifying to be a gay man in Uganda or Mauritania or some parts of Nigeria. Nigeria, by the way, is another country President Goodluck Jonathan has also declared making gay activity illegal recently. So it's a major issue in Africa. Now, the reason I entitled this video African Hypocrisy on the LGBT issue is because very often African people, when they comment on, and I am using a generalization because there's virtually no African country that can be called positive on the gay rights issue, so I am generalizing. I can't think of a single African country that can claim to be progressive on this issue. South Africa's maybe the best, but even there you have the issue of so-called corrective rape against lesbian women, which is an abomination. So Africa has an appalling track record in LGBT rights. But the reason I talk about hypocrisy is because very often when I see African people commenting on BBC threads and so on, very often it's sort of in a victimhood sort of mentality. Like there's still this idea of neo-colonialism in Africa and powerful countries exploiting Africa. That's a very, very strong sentiment you often see. And Africans really take issue with that. Now, it's unquestionable that in history Africa had got a very, very raw deal. Not just the transatlantic slave trade, but also colonial wars and decades of colonial rule, which was, let's face it, based on exploitation. There's absolutely no question African people suffered in history, no question about it. Therefore, I think it is profoundly hypocritical for Africans to now turn round and persecute their own LGBT communities. Because in history, African people suffer persecution at the hands of colonial rule, right? And now they're the ones doing the persecuting. And when they're being called out for it, when they're being exposed for it, they use excuses like, oh, it's our business, it's our own domestic legislation, it's culture. Well, I always think culture is the phoniest excuse to abuse human rights. It's not an excuse, it just isn't. Because the principle of human rights is not a Western invention, it's something that is in UN doctrine, okay? It's in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I do believe it's legitimate for powerful countries to call out African states for this very repressive attitude to gay rights. After all, Western countries send millions in aid every year to African states. So I do think we have a right to raise this issue. It's just an abomination, and I do think it's hypocritical. I made a video similar to this before, and I would make this message again to African viewers. By the way, I'm speaking as a straight man. I love women, and the idea of gay sex, man-on-man sex, it is alien to me as a straight man. However, I recognise that gay men do not hurt me. And there's a lot of propaganda about aligning homosexuality with paedophilia. That's a really phony argument, because there's plenty of examples of heterosexual paedophiles. So let's just stop this homophobic propaganda that it's got anything to do with paedophilia. These people are not demanding that They're not enforcing their lifestyle on anyone. They're just asking that they have the freedom, the basic human right to love who they love. So when a man loves another man, he is not hurting anyone else. When a woman loves another woman, she is not hurting anyone else. My message to the extremists is take your head out of the sand. Stop being so bigoted and stop hiding behind the excuse of culture. Frankly, that's a cowardly approach. Also, stop hiding it behind religion, because again, it's just a cop-out. Doesn't the Bible teach you to love your fellow man? Didn't Jesus teach to love everyone equally? Did he not teach that? So it's just a cop-out using religion, frankly. I have a lot of respect for Desmond Tutu speaking out on the issue, saying that he doesn't want to enter a homophobic heaven. Full credit to him, because he is a big voice in the African continent, and it does take high-profile Africans to speak out, because after all, African people are more likely to listen to high-profile Africans than they are to Europeans. So I do hope that more Africans speak out. It does take courage, and finally, just to conclude, I do think it's profoundly hypocritical to talk about victimhood from European powers, colonialism, neo-colonialism, and yet persecute, terrorise, and force your gay community to live a life of fear when they are not hurting anybody. It's an abomination and it's shameful. So don't hide behind this excuse, it's our business, we can do what we want. Actually, no nation can do what it wants if it comes to repression of basic human rights.